Good morning. Also, good morning to those of you on the East Coast. So good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I am your host, Brandon Choi, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much, you guys, for joining us this morning, wherever you're watching from. Had a little bit of technical difficulties just for a few moments, things that we needed to, fine tune, if you will. But we are here this morning on a Saturday talking this week in pop culture. And man, was it a jam packed week. But I won't be alone in getting some support and talking about all of the things that went down this week. So, without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome my co host, the one, the only, Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir?
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? How's it going? I didn't get it. Oh, there it goes. There we go. All right. I have that fanfare today, but sadly I didn't hit on them fours this morning, so I'm not exactly balloon happy. But we'll get there some kind of way together as friends.
We will. We will. We will. So, as I said, jam packed week, a lot to get into. And I wanted to, dive in, just briefly with our first story today. Obviously we had the Super Bowl that happened last week, and congratulations again to the Kansas City Chiefs who were able to eke out that win by the end of the game for the Super Bowl. However, we did have an unfortunate incident that did happen after the fact, a horrible, incident, tragedy, if you will, with the Super Bowl celebration with the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, with their victory rally that transpired. So this past Wednesday, during that victory rally, a shooting unfortunately occurred that resulted in one person losing their life and more than 20 people being wounded. Just with some updated information, two juveniles were detained based on what was believed to be have been a personal dispute. Spillman, as I said, horrible incident that happened, this week, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I would be remiss not to touch on it, seeing that we did also cover the Super Bowl because we don't really do, story like this typically of movers, but I just wanted to, still shine some light on something that was an unfortunate incident, something that you never want to see at a victory rally where people are enjoying themselves and celebrating their team. So what are your thoughts, just briefly?
Just briefly first, condolences to the families of those that are injured and also to those that lost their lives. We're sad to see that yet again, America is America-ing. We don't want to go too deep into how we feel about like America-ing because obviously y'all know what it is. Y'all live here. It's terrible, but we just got to do better, ladies and gentlemen. Put the guns down. Stop trying to end people instead of just handle your differences in a reasonable manner. It's just sad to see people constantly doing this to each other. It seems like the only way we're gonna stop it is if we do certain things, but we're not gonna do it. So I don't have anything else to say because it's not like we're gonna do anything about it. So how do you feel?
So, like I said, I'll just comment on it briefly, and it's just the idea that I want to touch on just a couple of things. One, the fact that there were two juveniles that are, and like I said, this is still ongoing, but just the idea that there are potentially two juveniles that are involved. And first off, you touch on the idea of having weapons in any capacity like that in a situation like that where you're endangering other people, but to also have it in the hands of juveniles too. That adds a whole other element also. But again, I'll just leave it at the fact that when you're going to a sporting event, you're going to a sporting event to enjoy yourself. If we're going to a victory rally, you're going to a victory rally, excuse me, to celebrate your team, to celebrate the success of your team. I'm sure anyone who was going to that rally that day were not anticipating that they could have potentially endangered their lives just by going to an event where they're just celebrating their team. So you never want to see anything like that. So I just hope that you know something can be learned from this incident and that we can move forward from it, where we never have an incident like this where people can't even go to a sporting event, can't even go to an event that's supposed to be celebratory to turn into something that's tragic. So that's all I have to say on it. Unless you have any further thoughts, I just want to touch on it briefly and be able to move on.
Yeah, just put the guns down, ladies and gentlemen.
So
like that Michael Jackson meme where he puts the pistol down, put it down, put the gun down.
Indeed. So just to go, and I wanted to get that out of the way so we could hop into some more positive things. Obviously, when we have a Super Bowl, we do have elements that are fun. Of course, we have the halftime show, but another component of it that is a lot of fun, of course, are the trailers. If you love your movies, they always have some. Many times they have some terrific trailers. A lot of times, first time looks at some films that we're just getting a tease of, and we had some in which we did get some prior, did have some prior promotion materials and teasers, if you will, before the game, and got a new one with the Super Bowl. But there were some where we got our first look. So I want to get into those. The first one that I want to get into, of course, is Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire. That dropped the new trailer during the Super Bowl. And we were provided, another look, of course, at this MonsterVerse that includes, Monarch, the organization known as Monarch, Kong, and Godzilla. We got to look at the villain, another look at the villain known as Scar. So what you see here in this picture, I guess you can say he's inspired by, I guess you could say, an orangutan as our new villain. But we also got a look at a possible ally of his that we have known as Shimu. We got a look, not like a really clear look of him, but we did get a look at some of the abilities that he has as the ice freezing, abilities that he has. So it looks like, Godzilla and Kong are going to have their hands full, with these two characters. And I'm going to try to see, it looks like I'm going to pull it up now. There was a picture of Shimu that has been making the rounds online to give us perhaps a look of what that character is going to look like. So a character that is, I guess you could say somewhat of a cousin of Godzilla in terms of, that reptilian, those reptilian qualities, but instead of him being on two legs, he's on four legs, it appears. So filming, we have this film coming out. It arrives on March 29th. New installment of the MonsterVerse, if you will. What are your thoughts on what we were shown in this trailer?
I really enjoyed the trailer. I think the best part was when old boy turned to David Tyree and was like, "Don't swallow your tongue," and he was like, "What?" And then they started going real fast, and he looked like he was about to swallow his tongue for sure. So that was really good. I love the monster movies. It's good that they don't show too much of the monster stuff because that's what we go to the movie for. Have the people talking about them all and be ominous about them, what they're going to do. Have the little deaf girl talk about something. I can feel the ground moving and it's scaring me, mama. You don't feel it because you don't have the powers that I do because I am super abled. So, that's wonderful. I like that. And that adds to the whimsy of these movies instead of the what's up, Facebook user? I can't see your name, but shout outs to you. But yeah, so yeah, I'm really excited for it. Love the Godzilla movies. Have loved them for my whole life. Godzilla's a great IP. I'm really pleased at what they've done with it. They haven't cheesed it up too bad. So I'm interested to see what they do. How do you feel about this?
So I'll be honest, when this franchise first began, I was like, oh, okay, Godzilla, again, and don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of the old Godzilla films, and up until this point, prior to them starting this MonsterVerse, we haven't been doing too great with Godzilla. So if I'm picturing, and don't get me wrong, I know that you have those you have lovers of that Matthew Broderick Godzilla, and that's I'm not going to yuck your yum, okay? I'm not going to yuck your yum, but I will also say that it's not the Godzilla of old that, we had all these awesome kaijus, if you will, outside of Godzilla, and like, the backstories that we had with a lot of those respective monsters, and how they connected with one another, and the schisms that they had, like the petty schisms that they had amongst each other. It was also entertaining, and I feel like with this current iteration, this current universe that we have a closer adaptation, if you will, of what I loved about the old, Godzilla franchise, that we had. And so with everything that we've had thus far, I don't know if you've had a chance to check out like Monarch, the prequel series that's available right now. If any of you guys haven't seen it, those of you out there, I highly recommend you check it out. It's a terrific series, and the reason why I say it's terrific is that if there is one issue, don't get me wrong, the monsters and the action that we have with the monsters in this current iteration has been great, but one of the sticking points that has really been lacking in this current iteration that we have with Godzilla and Kong and that MonsterVerse is that there really hasn't felt a need for the human characters that we have, and many of those characters have felt unnecessary and just felt like something that was just there and didn't really serve any impact or purpose towards the greater story at large with these monsters. Like, you could have plucked those characters out of the cinematic movies and the movie still would have been fine, I feel. But, of course, you have those human characters in there to kind of bring stakes to what's happening to the world as a lot of these monsters are going at each other and battling one another. But with the series itself, Monarch, because they have limitations with, I guess you could say with the budget. Yes, the monsters are there, but they have to rely far heavier on the human relationships and the human dynamics than relying on the monsters. And so it enriches the overall universe that they're making with this series because it allows you to have a better appreciation for the human characters that we have within this universe. So, I mean, there were some qualities within this trailer that were really cool. The fact that you have with this character Scar, he seems to be have a lot of ingenuity because he has, I guess, I don't know if he's still kind of like that whip weapon that he was able to utilize, and we haven't really had any characters up to this point that really demonstrated an ability to have ingenuity in that way. So it should provide an interesting dynamic with this character of being able to utilize different weapons versus just relying on, their brawn, in the case of Kong, or some of the other kaijus relying specifically on a special move or power that they have. So did you have any, thoughts before we hop into another trailer?
I just wish that they would stop with the go online for the trailer on the Super Bowl commercials. Give me the trailer on the Super Bowl commercial. Don't tease me with. I understand it might be like $3.5 million instead of the $7 million, and I understand that because math is math. 3.5 is much less money than $7 million. I understand that. It's almost half as much money. So I understand that, but just show me the thing. I want to see the thing. I don't want to have to go to another place. I'm looking at you right now. You've got me. You might lose me if you don't just show it to me. So that's one gripe that I have. But that's personal. That's not really a problem.
Understood. So hopping into another trailer. This is going to be a little bit of a trend for the next couple of stories. But another trailer that we did get a look at, and this is a film that was, gosh, it's crazy to believe, y'all. 28 years in the making. quite a removal there between installments, and that's none other than Twisters, the sequel to the 1996 hit known as Twister. Of course, they really tried to keep it simple and not overcomplicate our title with with the
And they even had two of them
film.
in the trailer. They even had two of them in the trailer. Like, oh, it's two.
Right. So, in this new film, there isn't much, because I tried to do a little bit of research. There isn't much that has been, shared with this film, other than the fact, of course, that it is a sequel to 1996 hit. I have a theory as to why there isn't much in the way of a synopsis and why, because even like on the IMDb, like they don't really have any breakdown of who our actors are playing. And my guess is because they have some ties, of course, to our characters in the original film, with Bill Paxton, of course, and Helen Hunt, and they don't want to spoil it. So, what are your thoughts on what we've seen, or we should say, what we were shown in this trailer with, more Twister mayhem?
Well, I like the original Twister. It was a cast of characters. You could obviously see that a lot of the stuff that's in this trailer were callbacks, like the way the little Twister scanners looked. It's been 35 years, but they haven't updated those. That's interesting. So that's it. I'm sure the blonde is probably Holly Hunter's daughter. We know. I don't remember what her name was in the movie, but clearly that's probably her daughter. That's why they got a blonde. So we'll see. Maybe they got like Grandma's Farm. I don't remember if Grandma's Farm blew up in that movie or not. I'm waiting to see what they do with cows in this movie, because that was a big thing for the original.
Right. They have to have a callback to cows, man. They have to. They have to. It would be criminal if they didn't. You have to. Like that's one of the main things about the original film that anyone will remember of the cow like blowing past the car. But I would just say in general, and then I've talked about this a lot just when it comes to sequels, why I am excited, because this film comes out this summer, it comes out in July, and why I am excited about the prospect of having a Twister sequel. I've talked about it before, just in terms of just the idea of sequels in and of itself. Hasn't been too long, because the first Twister movie was very much a product of its time. It was very much a product of the 90s, and so I feel like there was a missed opportunity to actually have it come out sooner, rather than waiting, like I said, 28 years. It's crazy. That's almost a whole generation, y'all. So, while I love the original film, there's so many ridiculous things that happen even outside of the cow. If I'm even picturing, how they got away. I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'll let you guys see it. I mean, I know it's been almost 30 years.
It's 30-year-old movie.
But still, I'll let other people who haven't discovered it yet or seen it yet watch the ending and see how ridiculous it is, how they survived the tornado. Where I'm like, come on, man. But it's a movie. You let it go. But it's still always entertaining and fun to see, or I should say, to look back and say they saved themselves with a belt, y'all. Yeah. A belt. They saved themselves with a belt. That's it.
Pootie Tang's belt. That was Pootie Tang's belt.
They saved themselves with a belt, y'all. So that's all I gotta say. But no, I am excited about the prospect of a new Twisters film. But I will say the challenge is really on them of what they do to bring a fresh new element to the franchise. Twister is very much a product of the 90s, and there are components of it that, like, at that time, it was, revolutionary with a lot of the effects and what we had with the Twister and how they were able to bring it to life. And what do you want to bring to it now, other than just having an additional Twister, hence the title? Other than doubling up on the Twisters that we see in the film, you gotta bring something new. So I'm hoping that they have something to reveal, or has yet to be revealed in this film, that brings a new element that makes it differentiates it, or separates it from its predecessor. Any thoughts before we get to our next trailer?
No, not really. Just shot in the dark. It's going to be a fire tornado. You're just going to see a fire tornado. I want to tell
That's
you
fair.
now. It's going to be
That's
a
fair.
tornado that's on fire, because that's scary. Like, tornado scary. Tornado on fire even scarier. So, like,
Indeed. And I want to give a shout out to Buddy R. Shout out Buddy R. Hello. Glad to have you here. And if you guys are here, y'all, send a shout out. Let us know that you watching, or if y'all have some things to say, feel free. You don't have to, watch Talking Heads, and if you have, some thoughts yourselves, we love to, hear your thoughts too. So, getting into another trailer that was revealed on Sunday. Getting into another trailer that dropped during the Super Bowl was none other than Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is the latest installment that we have in the current iteration. Again, as I say, current iteration of the Planet of the Apes franchise that we currently have. Now, according to the synopsis of this film, it follows many years after the events of the prior installments, with the reign of Caesar, of course, and it brings us, or allows us to follow a new character, a young ape who goes on a journey and starts to question things, not only about what he's been taught about the past, but also to make new decisions that can very much affect not only his species, but the human race as well, going forward into the future. So I have my thoughts or my theories of what's at play with this latest installment, but I'll punt it over to you first of what your impressions or your reaction to this new installment.
I feel like we could call this iteration of Planet of the Apes the Simpsons musical version, because just like on the Simpsons musical, Dr. Zaius. Whoa, Dr. Zaius. Dr. Zaius. So I think it's closest to that one, which we've all been waiting for with all these Planet of the Apes movies. Like the one with James Franco, I thought it was going to be that one. The next one was going to be real. Then they had a bunch of ones in the middle where the people were still talking. Why are the people still talking if the monkeys are talking too? I thought once the monkeys talk, the people stop talking. So hopefully this is the talking monkeys one. I don't know if it's PC to call them monkeys. Is it PC to call the Planet of the Apes monkeys? I think we could call them monkeys. I don't know. Is that a slur? I feel like if you call them a monkey, that's dismissive of an ape. To call him a monkey. He says, "I have no tail," but I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Wow. Thank you for that for that assist that I did not need.
It felt icky.
That I did not need. But I will say this. I will say this, and we talked about it. We talked about it offline, and just the idea that this is a franchise where I feel like they have, and don't get me wrong, like what we've gotten in the installments have still been great, and there's still been impressive demonstrations of special effects with motion capture and the performances that we've gotten with the characters, whether it's with the human characters as well as the apes, and the interactions between the apes and those human characters. But I feel like I'm glad that we're finally getting an installment where we are, from what it would appear, we are deeply entrenched into what we come to expect when we have that title of Planet of the Apes. I feel like in the prior installments that we've had a lot of we've had a lot of Planet of the Apes light. Planet of the Apes, right. Like, we've been itching our way to this film, and I'm like, when are we going to get to this film? When are we going to get to this story where we finally have a planet of apes. We have a planet in which apes are in control of humanity. And we're finally here because I felt like for the longest time I was like, okay, y'all running into like Terminator territory where we get in all these films about us talking about us getting into the future and we never get to the future. Like
Judgment Day never
like come on, like when are we gonna get to Judgment Day, y'all?
Yeah.
So finally we have a film where we're entrenched into the story that we've come to expect, for years. Because I mean, can you if you have a quick set, Spillman, while I continue here, like going into when that James Franco film came out, like it came
at
out
least 2013 or so, because I was still
yeah, I'm about to say
movies.
It's been 10 years, y'all. It took us 10 years to get here. And while like I understand you want to be able to take your time with the story and really kind of maximize on a character development, which of course you want to do, it shouldn't have taken.
It's been 13 years, Brandon. This first one came out in 2011. They had one in
2011. 2011. That's 13 years, y'all.
That's way too long.
13 years. That I feel, like I said, while I appreciate that we have a film or say a franchise that has really, fleshed out the characters and really taken its time with character development,
it's monkeys.
It shouldn't have taken us. It shouldn't have taken us until the fourth installment to finally have them in the story that we come to expect with this franchise. Like I feel like it should have happened a movie ago, versus us waiting until now to finally get that story. So with that said, I'm happy that we're finally here, and I'm interested to see what's going on there. At the beginning, I was saying that it happens years based off of what the plot synopsis. This is what they have on IMDb. It happens years after the last installment. So we're, like I said, deeply entrenched into this era of the apes having overthrown the human race. My guess is with the ape character that we are following in the story, that he may very well be perhaps a descendant of Caesar, because even throughout the story, even though Caesar had an influence on how that change or how that evolution came about of them taking over and ruling over the human race, even though he had a hand in it, throughout those installments, he still had, an appreciation of being able to, or I should say, I was going to say coexist with humans, but that's not the word that I wanted to use. He still had a sense of honor about him, and he didn't have a bloodthirsty aspect to him where he was completely indifferent to the humans that played a pivotal role in his upbringing, that shaped him into the character that he was when he was younger. And he still held on to that, and he still had existing relationship with human characters. While he still had his differences, he wasn't someone who was like militant and wanted to completely exterminate humans. So my guess is that we come to find out that he is actually in fact a long lost descendant of Caesar. So we'll see if that ends up coming true, but it would make sense if that's the case, because it would bring the story full circle from that first film. So I don't know what your thoughts on with that is.
So my thoughts are, maybe it's just the case of recognizing true talent that, have ignored for a very long time. And maybe this will be a theme that rings true further on in time. So we'll see.
We will. So switching gears into the world of sports, and I'm sure Spills will appreciate this as much as we go back and forth between Warriors and Lakers. It was revealed over this week that the Warriors, over the trade deadline, tried to get LeBron with the Golden State Warriors.
They tried to get who, Brandon? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Did you say that they tried to get LeBron Raymond James?
They did. They did.
Oh, okay.
They did. I'm objective enough about my team to say yes, they did. They did try to get LeBron. So there's so much to unpack from this that I want to be able to get into, but I'm gonna let you, vent off whatever you need to say, Spill. So I'm gonna give you the floor. Have at it.
Well, I have heard people just say that this is just something to remind people after the Super Bowl that the NBA is still a league that people need to pay attention to. So we needed to get something spicy out there so that the people could argue about it. Obviously LeBron is one of the greatest players of all time, and a franchise like the Warriors could use someone who can actually play point guard and stay on the court and not be fighting people and making strange facial gestures like we saw with Draymond in the past couple of days. Like, what's going on?
I was about to say, say out what you really feel. Stop trying to be like mysterious. Get to the point.
Stop playing. Like Draymond looked like somebody's mama that is in the choir with you in the audience and church messing up, and she can't come across and be like, "Hey, stop doing that." She was just like, he was just looking at just her. So it looks like that Draymond is not all the way there. The two teams are not that great. The Warriors only a game over 500. The Lakers only 4 games over 500. They're both 9 and 10. We're in the play-in, but barely. So, both these teams are filled with vets, but in a different era, they would not be playoff teams. So,
no, they would not.
Interesting. They would not be playoff teams. So
it is. So I'll say this, man. We can both agree to this as much as we, go back and forth about our respective teams, right? That can we just imagine a team with LeBron James and Steph Curry on the same team?
Oh!
I'm not talking about
that's my fantasy team.
I'm not talking about an all-star team, y'all. I'm not talking about USA team. I'm talking about a NBA roster with LeBron James and Steph Curry. That's not fair. This is not fair. So, like,
that's my basketball fantasy team right now. I beat somebody 7-1. The only category they beat me in was field goal percentage. It was only by 0.08%. I be killing people. I don't even change my roster. I just lead them 2 dudes in, and we be winning. So, yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, you have a souped-up version. You have a scoring version of Draymond Green, right? So you have a point forward. So you have someone who brings a lot of the intangibles. Even though I will give the edge to Draymond since he doesn't really bring as much offensively, I would still give him a slight edge defensively over LeBron, considering where LeBron is in his career. But LeBron is still solid, right, as a defender. He's okay as a defender. But if we're talking about the offensive, IQ, if we're talking about the offensive, abilities that we have, passing, rebound, and all of that stuff, all the other things offensively that he brings to the table, and they perfectly complement one another. And that, you have a point forward that, Steph has demonstrated he's very successful with when he has played with, terrific point forwards. And then you give LeBron a shooter. You give LeBron the greatest shooter of all time. All time. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't care what anybody says. All time. Greatest shooter of all time. But let's call it spade. Greatest shooter of all time. That would be insane. And I mean, mind you, I'm sure they would have to give away like a crap ton of their roster to be able to get LeBron. But I feel like they would have figured out a way to make that work even with the number of people that they may have had to sacrifice from the roster in order to do that. Because I feel like we do have some young talent from our team that we still would have been able to put in effective role positions along with Bron and with Steph. So wishful thinking and in an alternate universe somewhere of having them play along inside each other, because both of them could benefit from one another. Because as we both said, Spills, they both struggling. Both teams are struggling. So it could have only helped, I feel, either one. But I will say this. I will say that I do believe that there is a reason why LeBron, nixed. From what I understand, he nixed it, and or should say, his agent nixed it. But I feel like at the end of the day, it came from him because if he was down for it, his agent would have.
I feel like it's because of his kids. His kids are in. His kids.
I think it's more than that.
High school.
I want to say
I feel
it's
like
more
it's
than
that
that.
simple. His kids are in. His son is in high school. His other son plays at the USC. Why would you move unless it's across the hall? Why would you move when you can decide where you go? You made all the money in the world. You want to see your boy play every day. I feel like that's
I think it's more than that. I think we're still not like appreciating. I want to say that it's also in addition to that because I feel like that plays a role into it as well. I feel like when it comes to business, LeBron is very much a big picture type of person, and if you are trying to cement all of these business ventures that you have currently right now, so that way you have them, up and running come time for you to retire. You don't want to get in the way of the possible earnings with those respective businesses that you have deeply entrenched in the LA area by going off to another team. Because if you do something like that, that's going to like ruin the consumer base that you have with all of those potential business ventures that you have in LA, which is going to mess with your bottom line. It's going to mess with that money. It's going to mess with that. It's going to mess with that overall.
You might go from having 1 billion to 2 billion staying in LA. So
exactly. So I think it's also a business decision in thinking about how it could have a drastic impact in ruining those business ventures by jumping ship to another team, which could put a bad taste in the mouth of possible consumers that you have with those business ventures that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, I wanted to hop into another fun story. I know we were talking, sports. We're switching gears back and forth between all these industries, but we did have some, unfortunate news of a gentleman who passed this week, and that's with William Post. If you know William Post, he is the co-creator of Pop-Tarts. That breakfast.
RIP to a real one, ladies and gentlemen.
That many of us enjoy, growing up, and many of us still enjoy to this day. That we have, kids these days still enjoy, having Pop-Tarts for breakfast and being able to have breakfast on the go. So yes, he passed this week at the age of 96. So full life, y'all. Didn't pass away at a young age, but still, what are your thoughts on William Post and like the impact of Pop-Tarts?
Hey, Pop-Tarts are one of the GOAT breakfast foods. He invented the grab and go breakfast. Before Pop-Tarts, we was eating breakfast at home. After Pop-Tarts, here, take this, get out of my house. That's what they started saying. Just take it with you and go. I think, personally, I think the wild berry is my favorite flavor. I don't know about you. You seem like a brown sugar cinnamon kind of guy, but I don't know. What's your favorite flavor of Pop-Tarts there, Brandon?
So I have a couple of them. I would say the s'mores one.
Oh, the s'mores. I knew
s'mores one you can't go wrong with.
I knew it.
The s'mores one you can't go wrong with. The apple one's pretty good. I'm old fashioned. I still like the strawberry. You can't go wrong with the strawberry. That's the OG one. Like I love the strawberry one, of course. But yeah, the cinnamon one, the apple one, the s'more one. And I'm trying to think. There's one other one that I'm like brain farting on right now. But yeah, I mean, there's so many. It brings back so many memories, of childhood, of having it for breakfast, having it, you always used to have it for lunch too, growing up, and that used to always be a treat of. You didn't even have to.
I got $1, Mr. Vending Machine.
Yeah, you didn't have to heat it up, man. You didn't have to heat it up. You were set, just having, a room temperature, a Pop-Tart. just for a snack. Even when you had it, in your lunchbox, as one of the food options that you had in there, your parents put in there for you. So again, shout out to William Post. Condolences to his family and friends, of course. As I said, passed away at 96. So he had a
but
full
here's
life.
another real question. Here's another real
What's
question.
up? What's up?
How much money you think is Pop-Tart money? Imagine if you was marrying the heiress to the Pop-Tart throne. Like,
Right.
we going
Right.
on vacations forever.
Right.
There's no not money. Because I've never met anybody be like, ugh, Pop-Tarts. I've never heard that. They be like, ugh, I don't like that flavor. I don't
Fair.
like that one.
Exactly. But not if they hate Pop-Tarts.
They be like, I'll eat a Pop-Tart. Maybe the celiacs, people with the gluten problems, maybe. But I'm sure they got gluten-free Pop-Tarts now because the Pop-Tart people making money, baby.
For sure.
They're everywhere. But, RIP to a real one. Sad.
For
sad,
sure.
sad.
So getting into, some more goings on this week. I know we were talking about like some trailers, but we also had some teasers of some future teams in the MCU at large, and that's none other than the Fantastic Four. So we did get a tease on the Instagram, on the IG of Marvel, of Marvel's first family, and we did get a reveal of all the said actors that we have in those roles, and there is some speculation of when the film will be set. It looks like, based on the cover that we have here, or the illustration that we have here with what Ben Grimm, aka the Thing, is holding, that it is set in 1963, which is of course a Life, a magazine that he's holding there that is from 1963, featuring President Johnson. So, what are your thoughts, Spills, of the reveal of our Marvel family and all the actors? Because I want to be able to dive into all the actors there. Give me 1 second, because we had a quick glitch there. But in terms of the actors that we have, in those roles, whether it's Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Ebon Moss, Bachrach, and Joseph Quinn. Pedro, of course, playing Mr. Fantastic. Vanessa playing Invisible Woman. Ebon playing Ben Grimm, and Joseph playing the Human Torch.
Well, I will say firstly, again, talk about people money, even though it's not my money to talk about. Pedro Pascal's pockets must be straight, because he's getting that Star Wars money, and he's getting this Fantastic Four money. He get the HBO money. Pedro,
I'm about to say, he has the HBO money. Don't sleep on that HBO money. That HBO money is ridiculous.
Oh, that Bama pockets are straight.
They stretching? Are they stretching? See what I did there? They stretching?
Yeah, of course. These Fantastic pockets is huge.
They stretching?
He made unstable molecules so that he could make his pockets stretch. That's the real reason why Mr. Fantastic made those unstable molecules, so that he can, stretch them pockets out like he needs to stretch his arms out. But, I'm really excited for this one, even though they've never done a good Fantastic Four movie. I think setting it in the 60s will work. I imagine what they're just going to do is these people are going to be in the 60s, and to act like, because the Avengers really started with Iron Man, they're going to act like they went into space, and then when they get hit by the cosmic rays, they time jump. So, I think that's what they're going to do. I was a little disappointed that they didn't go with Krasinski or whatever his name is.
Krasinski.
John, yeah. Yeah, it's because he looked pretty good as Mr. Fantastic, although he doesn't look too smart. I feel like Pedro Pascal looks more like a guy who reads a lot. Krasinski looks like a guy who's like, I can't get over that he's the guy from The Office, because clearly that's where I think of when I see him, and I don't feel like that's the kind of vibes Mr. Fantastic gives off. Even though that's a character, people can grow from characters. A lot of times, first time you see him, that's how you think of him. So, Pedro Pascal, I feel like he's a really good actor. I'm not as familiar with the other three in the ensemble, which I think is okay. I don't think that's a big deal. So I'm excited for it. We'll see how it goes. People was throwing dirt on Marvel's grave, but you know, this show will show you, ladies and gentlemen, Marvel's just they printing money over there. They are printing money over there with the Marvel universe. So excited to see this.
So here's what I will say. We have had an interesting history with the Fantastic Four cinematically, right? We had we had stories iteration of the Fantastic Four in the early 2000s. And while it was fine, there were components of it that were fine. There were, also components of it that were, that gave, pause to a lot of people, whether it was what we got with Galactus, right? Being a lot of people called it a fart cloud, right?
It was a fart cloud.
So hopefully we have like a legit Galactus now. Which from what I understand, a lot of in terms of what's going on out there, casting wise or casting rumors, is that it may be Javier Bardem, who will potentially be
Dr. Doom. Oh, Galactus. It's even scarier. That's even scarier. I think that's even scarier.
Well, no, like there have been some news that it may be Cillian Murphy, so who's currently nominated for an Oscar for Oppenheimer. So that you can't really go wrong with him. I mean, there's some other names that are floating around out there, but going back to Fantastic Four, there were some components in there that were good, and there were components in there that like I said, gave people pause. Like as much as people kind of gripe on Chiklis as, and I apologize if I'm butchering, but Chiklis as the Thing, I thought, like, I enjoyed his interpretation, of the Thing, how he portrayed that character, and within the time that we have in which that franchise was made, what they were able to do with that character's, costume. If we're comparing it to like the film that, I guess, what is it, direct-to-video film in the 90s, it's night and day, to what they were able to accomplish with that costume, that he wore. So, you have that component there. You have the Silver Surfer within that franchise, which was, I enjoyed, what they were able to do with the Silver Surfer. And I was also, there were components of what was done with Human Torch with Chris Evans. Yes, the Captain America Chris Evans, y'all, for those of you who may not be old enough to know that he also played the Human Torch way back when, before being Steve Rogers. Because I know we have some folks out there that weren't even born then, that are now in high school, that now know him as Captain America, or only know him as Captain America. So we'll see what happens. Marvel has really been on a skid of sorts ever since the start of this multiverse saga that they've had. Don't get me wrong, there have been maybe a handful that I can count offhand of television shows and films that were quite good, but they're far and few between the other ones that have kind of been middle of the road, if not worse. So, hopefully they're able to get back on track, and, with, Deadpool that's coming up, which we'll get into, coming up, just to, spoil things a bit, but also with this film, which is set, from what I understand, to arrive in the summer of 2025. I mean, we have some characters in here that, with their prior work, I know you were saying before that you didn't recognize some of them. Of course, we, recognize Pedro Pascal. I've known or been familiar with Pedro Pascal since Narcos.
Narcos, he was crazy in Narcos. I'm rewatching that.
People don't watch Narcos, you're missing out. That show's terrific. go back, go and watch it if you have not seen it. But terrific show. If I'm picturing Kirby, people probably don't even realize this. Kirby was in the what is it? The spinoff of Fast and Furious franchise film with what is it? Hobbs and Shaw. She played the Shaw sister in that film. Of course, she's been in other things as well. I believe there is, and I'm brain farting on this right now. There have been some award nominated films that she has been a part of recently. But that's like the big thing that I recall it from right now and thinking quickly on it. And then of course with Quinn, like people remember him most recently in Stranger Things. So he was and I'm brain farting on his name too, but he was a fan favorite from last season with his character as well. Now with the last gentleman, with I apologize, with Baccarat. I mean, I understand that he's in The Bear. I haven't had a chance to get around to the
There's too many shows these days, Brandon.
I haven't had a chance to get around to The Bear. I understand that it's quite good. But I haven't had a chance to see a whole bunch of that show and see his the character that he portrays in that show. So I will put it on the to-do list. I will put it on the queue, if you will, to check out that show, because so many people in my circle tell me that, man, you gotta check out The Bear. Oh, you gotta check out The Bear. You gotta check it out. You gotta check it out. So okay, I'm on it. I'm gonna get on it. I'm gonna watch it. Okay, I got you. I'm gonna watch it. So but yeah, like they have a incredible cast. We'll see what happens with it. Hopefully they are moving forward with like I said, what's suggested with it being in the 60s. But it will be interesting, how they'll write themselves out of the challenge of the existing lore and the existing story that they've had thus far, in the Marvel universe. Because I feel like a lot of times, while it's interesting to say, oh, this character was here the whole time, it still provides a challenge, because inevitably, based off of what I'm saying, inevitably, with what you've already done before, every once in a while you'll hit a snag of, oh yeah, like we did write ourselves in a corner by saying this about what happened in the 50s, or by saying this what happened in the 60s. So my guess is maybe they never, just like you said, they never had their powers, so like they didn't cause that much of a blip in terms of the attention that they brought to themselves. So that's why they weren't as well known. Perhaps they did go out into space in the 60s, and by virtue of that accident that ends up giving them their powers, that it also, in the act of giving them their powers, puts them in a weird place in terms of space and time, that causes them to be rerouted into the future, into present day, out of time. Kind of like, I guess you could picture it almost like Quantum Leap or something, where they're a family out of time, which I guess would provide an interesting dynamic, because while it wouldn't be that much of a leap for Reed Richards, because he's a genius, he would be able to adapt pretty quickly. Like, oh, this is cool. It's cool that we have this now. It's cool that we have this technology now. He'd be able just to adapt immediately. It will provide an interesting dynamic to the other characters, where they'll kind of like with Captain America, be a fish out of water, where they're trying to adjust to the modern time of.
Oh yeah, it could explain why Thing hates Yancey Street, because he was from Yancey Street. You would think he's the most famous person from the street. I never understood that in the comic books. Why did Yancey Street hate him? Did he do something on that street where everybody was like, "Don't come around here ever again, Benjamin Grimm. We never want to see you darken our door ever again." So if he comes back like 60 years later as an orange monster, that makes more sense. And the neighborhood's all changed, and he's like, "What's going on, Yancey Street? I hate you." Like, that makes more sense to me. So
right,
definitely there with you. Definitely.
All right. So next up that I want to get into, and I spoiled it a little bit before, but that's none other than Deadpool 3, of
That's
course, aka Deadpool and Wolverine. We did get a teaser of it during the Super Bowl, and not only were we given like a glimpse of where Wade is in his life as of now, but we also get a hint as to how he's going to make his way into the MCU, which is by virtue of the TVA, the organization that we were introduced to on the Loki series, and how he's going to come into collision with Mr. Wolverine, Mr. Logan himself, and how that a relationship is going to develop and come to a head. So, Spillman, tell me your thoughts of what we got in the Deadpool trailer. Some of the teases, all the Easter eggs. Like, I've never seen a trailer or teaser that managed to squeeze so many Easter eggs into a couple of minutes. Where I'm like, is that? Wait a second. I had to like freeze frame it. So, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I think it was definitely freeze frameable. I liked all of the teases that they did in the trailer. It was the thing I was looking forward to the most in the Super Bowl, as my team doesn't want to compete for Super Bowls anymore. So I was very excited about this, even more so than the socks that Jermaine Dupri wore on Sunday, which, a lot of people were talking about, but, I don't know. Really excited about Deadpool and Wolverine. I think that we as the MCU has been so successful that we forget that the MCU is basically the castaway characters. Like, they just got Spider-Man in there. Wolverine is like top 3 Marvel characters. Like, I don't care who you are. He's a top 5 comic book character. Like, I got claws on my hands and I cannot die. That's like just excellent. Excellent writing, excellent character driven, We're going to talk a little bit more about Logan as we go on in our summer this year. I feel like this is the year Wolverine. He's just back in a major way. And, even in the comic books, they've kind of shied away from using these characters as much as, they don't own the rights to them for their real money makers. So they try to shy away from putting out stuff with them. But Wolverine is back, baby. And I'm just so excited about it because, oh, my God, he's just such a great character. He just... like, Deadpool is like a Wolverine that's funny, but Wolverine is just enough himself, and I'm just so happy to see him here. What do you think about this?
So, just like I was saying in one of the stories that we had above, there's so much that was so much that there was to unpack with this trailer. First off, I know that we were talking about this before. We I should say we talked about this in the past of, could Marvel manage to do a film or be brave enough to do a film that is not PG-13? And from what we saw in what they had in this teaser, this film is very much not PG-13. In terms of what is said, there's a lot alluded to that is definitely makes it not PG-13. It was actually, considering that the nature of when it was broadcast and when it debuted, it was actually pretty graphic. Where I was like, wow, they actually showed a bloody trailer like this, like during the Super Bowl. And mind you, like they did give like a brief teaser during the Super Bowl, and you had to watch the full trailer online. But even in the tease that they had, they did get some quick glimpses of some pretty graphic stuff. And I was like, wow, okay, they got away with this, in terms of, primetime TV of the Super Bowl. So, good. I guess congratulations on you guys for being able to, get, squeeze a lot of that in or sneak a lot of that stuff in. But in terms of the nature of the MCU at large, like I said, it was cool to be able to see the TVA. It was, also cool to see, the cast of characters that have been a part of the Deadpool franchise, make an appearance. A lot of people have been saying that, how did that character come back? But, and I know it's been a while, but if you look back on Deadpool 2, by the end of the film, and they do it as like a quick montage, he managed to get Cable's a time traveling device and was able to get a lot of those characters back. He was able to go back and get a lot of them back. So, to answer that question in terms of what they did there, but there are a lot of components in here that I feel like is not being given enough attention. There is a moment in which Copycat or I'm brain farting on the actress's name, but at least the character that she's portraying ends up becoming Copycat. She's been the love interest of Wade throughout the franchise thus far. She gives a line in the trailer in which she says, blow out the candle, my friend. And I'm like, wait a second, like, aren't y'all like a couple? Like, who calls, what couple calls each other like friends?
The best relationships are friendships, Brandon.
But come on,
the best relationships.
Come on. They're not going to address each other that way. So, like,
No, I know.
I feel like there's much more to that line that a lot of people are not giving credit to, and I feel like maybe somehow Deadpool, or say Wade, caused way more damage than we're giving him credit for. Because, like, in the movie, the understanding is that, okay, he changed her being killed in the last film, and they went back to their relationship as is. But maybe, and this is my theory, and we can come back to this, we can revisit this and look back on this, and I could come back on this once the movie comes out come July. Maybe he went to a universe and he had to keep rewinding things to a point where the only way he could have, and I want to say it's Vanessa, now that the name's coming to mind, the only way he could have her in his life is if they never became a couple. Only reason why I say that is because they get introduced. We're introduced to that idea in the What If series when we're thinking of, if you remember that episode with Doctor Strange, that he kept going back because he was trying to figure out a way to still connect. And I'm brain farting on that character's name, who's his love interest in the Doctor Strange franchise. But to make a long story short, he basically, in the universe, or to say in the way that we come to understand how the story's supposed to go, he's supposed to tragically, of course, have the accident with his hands. And because of that, he never got to go to dinner with that character by, in that potential universe. And so because of that, it sent things into a trajectory where they were never able to actually be together and to be a couple. And so he tried in multiple attempts to not have that accident, and by not having that accident, something tragic ended up happening to her each time. And so you ended up coming up to, I forgot the term that they use for it, with what they have developed in the MCU. I want to say it's a something event where that can't be changed. You guys can tell me in the comments, or I'll try to see if I can find it. But maybe the similar thing happens with that character, where the only way he can have her in his life is by them not being a couple, which kind of makes it a little tragic that he's still able to have this character in his life, but they're not actually able to be a couple, because by them being a couple, it always endangers her and always results in her being killed somehow in any given potential reality. So a Nexus event, like I want to say it was the Nexus event, or maybe it was another phrase that they used, but it was something that could not be reverted, where you can't get past that eventual result, no matter how many ways you try to change the trajectory of a possible future. So you had that there, and then some people have been talking about it briefly, but I don't feel like enough attention has been brought on it, is the return of Pyro. Like at the very end, he pops up at the end, and so how does he fit into this story? While it's cool to have him there, I'm like, how does Pyro fit in? Like, that's a random Brotherhood of Mutants character to bring back. Like, how does he fit into this? And
he's an OG. It's good they bring
he
back the
is, he
OG.
is. But I mean, perhaps it has something to do because I do understand that there are some other cameos in there that are in the Brotherhood of Mutants. That I will say, and one who leads the Brotherhood of Mutants, which I will also say. But that should be enough of a hint for you guys. So like maybe that plays into it. I know a lot of people, bring up the character that looks like Professor Xavier. However, from what I understand, that is not Professor Xavier. That's Cassandra Nova, who, if you guys don't know who that is,
That's his evil sister.
yeah, that's the evil sister. So that provides an interesting dynamic as well. That is not they have a lot of components of that in the trailer where they're trying to hint on who it may be or try to like trick you into who it may be, but it may be somebody else. Because there's also a rumor out there that Patch, who is a version of Wolverine, where he's in his tux outfit, which we see in the trailer, may actually not be Hugh Jackman specifically. It may be someone else playing a variant of Wolverine.
There you go.
Someone from Hogwarts, I hear. That's all I said. Someone from Hogwarts. So allegedly, it may be someone from Hogwarts. So we will see. So what are your thoughts, man, on just this last impressions before we get to our very last story here?
Again, I'm really excited. Wolverine is the GOAT. He's the GOAT. He's really one of the characters that made me really like the Marvel Comics universe. When the X-Men show first came out, I was like, oh no, this dude with the knives on his hands. He's the guy. He is the guy. He bucks authority. It's all the things you want as a like 7 or 8-year-old boy to be. You're like, no, I'll save everybody. Don't worry, and I'll do it the way that I want to do it. So just happy to see that corporate sponsors and contracts are finally coming the way that they need to.
Indeed. All right, so getting into our last story, the story in which you guys saw here as our cover. If you were looking at the promo, of course, we had the premiere of X-Men 97 that dropped on the 15th. It dropped on Thursday. And we, in the trailer, we're given notified that it drops this spring on March 20th. Now, of course, X-Men 97 picks up after the events of what we had in the prior X-Men the animated series that came out on Fox. And it sees, I should say, our Uncanny X-Men continuing their adventures following what transpired with Professor X, but and it alludes to some new wrinkles. The chief among being the fact that Magneto, Eric Lehnsherr, is now leading the X-Men or now has control over the X-Men, which we learned, at the end of the trailer. So, I'm going to punt it over to you, Spills, to have a return of his cartoon almost 30 years after the fact. I know we were talking a little bit about about Twister, having kind of that stint there of being away, but now having X-Men come back, which is I'm sure not just a major part of your childhood, but also a major part of mine. What were your thoughts, sir?
Oh, I just want to say first and foremost that when I say stuff be 30 years too late, I'm not talking about cartoons. I'm talking about like with actors and stuff. Because cartoons, you could draw the cartoon look the same. The Simpsons characters today look like the Simpsons characters from the 90s, and I can't really tell the difference because they don't age because they're drawings. I'm really excited about this. It seems like X-Men as a franchise and as a mythos and stuff is kind of like Rage Against the Machine. Some of the people that consume the media don't really understand what the media is really about and then get confused as they become older and they read more about it. They're like, what's going on with this? I didn't know that this was about. And it's like, it's been there the whole time. What are you talking about, bro? So the people on the internet that's complaining about some of the themes and, stories that they're trying to do, get yourself together and read a book. Come on, like read a book. Read a book. I hate to sound condescending. Come on, ladies. What are y'all talking about? It's the X-Men. They battle against a world that fears and hates them. Who does that sound like? I wonder. Huh. And they still want the world to be happy because, the X-Men are like the best of us. They don't want the world to burn down. They just want the world to be a better world. They don't want to burn it down to make it a better world because that wouldn't actually be a better world. That'd be a burned down world. You cannot burn down the world. And I think that, ultimately that's a big reason why I personally prefer Marvel Comics over DC Comics, because Marvel Comics seems to get that you cannot burn down the world. You cannot have a superpower person and make it better for everybody without actually addressing some of the things that, you can't punch somebody about. You can't punch somebody about them not liking you. Truly, like if they punch you, you can punch them back. But if they don't like you, fists and laser powers and all that is not going to solve any of the problems of the world. So, X-Men is a great franchise for that. As a father, I try to impart those lessons. I try to impart those lessons, and that's what's really important. So, to me, X-Men is a great franchise. This is one of the greatest cartoon shows ever invented. I'm excited to see the intro because one of the greatest intros of all time. Like, just all the things that they talked about in that, like some of the things that they talk about in a lot of the X-Men movies, talking about like people trying to take over the government to get rid of one group of people. That sounds horrible, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? We don't want that in our country today. We don't want one group of people being scrutinized by the government and all the powers of the government attacking them. And we're getting on a tangent here, and I don't want to go too far on a tangent because we're talking about the X-Men.
Yes, please, let's not get on a tangent. But I will say this. I will say this, and you can agree with me. This Spills is can we just reflect on how lucky we were to be kids in the '90s and how many incredible cartoons, and I will put it up with any cartoon today. Any cartoon that we had today, the incredible cartoons that we had in the '90s. I mean, we had. I just want to go down the list. We had Batman the Animated Series, incredible cartoon. We had Spider-Man the Animated Series, also incredible cartoon. Also did a crossover with X-Men. That was awesome. Yeah. If people recall, if people think recall that cartoon. And then of course we have X-Men, which which is the subject of the story currently. To have all of these cartoons that not only were they terrific cartoons for kids, but they were also cartoons that also had themes that are relevant to our everyday. Like it gets into a lot of mature themes, but I feel like it tackled them in such a way, in such an effective way, and I'm including all of these cartoons, in that conversation, whether it's Batman, whether it's Spider-Man, whether it's X-Men, talking about a lot of mature themes and putting it in a digestible way that it's not only useful for kids, but it doesn't talk down to kids, where you also can have parents watch it with their kids and it's still something that they can enjoy too. Because you as a parent, and
it's a lot of mindless shows I watch that they trying to get
this as a parent, yes, and I'm sure there are a lot of cartoons that that you watch with your kid, and it's clearly there just for your kid. When you're like, okay, I'm watching with this, watching this with you, son, but this isn't for me. Like it's a little too much, for me to be able to grasp, because they're trying to appeal to you specifically. And those cartoons back then, those were cartoons, put it this way, those are cartoons that, because of their ability to relate to audiences young and old, I would watch those cartoons with with my parents, I would watch, those cartoons. I would have discussions with other relatives, older relatives that watched the cartoon, and they would a lot of times, we would talk about it after the fact on the phone, even if I wasn't physically, there with them watching it. So I had aunts and uncles who would watch these cartoons, and sometimes, if there was a week that we missed, I would catch a moment with them and say, hey, what happened this week? Like, I missed such and such. How come this, went down? Or they would call me vice versa, say, hey, Brandon, like, I thought such and such happened, like this happened to this character. When did, so and so, how did that, come about? And we would have like, legit conversations about like the progression of the characters in these shows. And these are cartoons, y'all. Like, you would think that it would just be for kids, but like, I would legit have like full blown conversations as a kid, mind you being in elementary school and in middle school, because, went all the way up to that time to the late 90s, where, we would have like full blown conversations about the subject matter, about, what transpired with the characters and a lot of those things. So to be able to have cartoons and content that is that dense, that it can appeal to people, people of all ages, or say people of all backgrounds, and for audiences of all ages, whether they are young and old. That says a lot. So there. I understand that X-Men '97 is going to have many of the characters.
Oh, looks like we got a little hiccup, ladies and gentlemen. But again, X-Men '97, one of the greatest, X-Men. When we talk about superheroes, like one of the first things that the Marvel. Okay, yeah, you're back. It's like you were froze. Could you hear me?
Oh, okay.
Okay. No.
And now that we have those, not only do we have a lot of those voice actors back, but we also, there's a potential with all the, the storylines that we've had in comics thus far for them to tackle a lot of those stories, that have been, around since '97. A lot of those story arcs that we've had in comics, they can now tackle and they can now dive into, which would be really cool.
For sure. And just finally to remember, the X-Men and Spider-Man were the two things that Marvel sold when they needed some money. They didn't sell Captain America, they didn't sell Iron Man, or Incredible Hulk, or any of those kind of franchises. They sold the X-Men because the X-Men was so profitable. Some of the all-time highest-selling comic books ever. Like, forget like the most expensive ones, like the ones that you can't find because they're from a million years ago when moms would just throw that stuff out and they wouldn't let people collect them. But as far as circulation numbers are concerned, are these X-Men characters in this Spider-Man, some of these Spider-Man books, but truly the X-Men. So to me, it's great to see them to revisit this. '97 was a really rough year for Marvel comic books, if we're going to be honest. Like the lights almost turned out on $1 billion franchise, and they didn't even know that they had it then. So, it's just good to see that they can revisit this. And I know I'm contradicting myself because I always complain about them making these old sequels, but I'll let them do this because it's the X-Men on the cartoon. It's the cartoon. It's not like you got to see a character like Indiana Jones being all old, grabbing his back. They're not going to make any of them characters do any of that silly stuff because you won't see any difference. It's the same thing. Also, in the preview, Gambit charges up Wolverine's claws.
I saw that. That was so cool. I wanted to get into that, but I know we went on a tangent there. But man, yeah, that was cool, man.
Oh,
that was tight.
Oh, wonderful.
That was tight. Come on, y'all. Yeah, y'all gotta have more moments like that. Yeah, if we have moments like that, if we have that as our cartoon, we're in luck. We're in luck. So with that out of the way, guys, that is going to do it for our extensive, because it goes far. Like I said, this is going to be a dense episode because so much went down this week. And we want to thank you guys for, sticking in there with us. Before I dive into some of the things that are going on for the rest of this weekend, I want to punt it over to Spillman. So go ahead, Spills, take it away.
It's All-Star Weekend, ladies and gentlemen. We didn't even have time to talk about that.
We didn't. That's how dense it's been this weekend.
Excited
Or
for that.
last week.
We'll see what happens. Kind of sad Wemby didn't make the All-Star team, but he will next year and for the next 20 years if he stays.
He'll be there, man. He'll be there. You don't got to worry about that.
Yeah, that boy is good. Yeah. So, again, check me out on Instagram, Truly Spill. I post fun things, and I'll see you there.
All right, cool. Well, once again, I am your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And I just want to go into a couple of quick minutes. Just know that you guys can, if you guys enjoy a lot of the content that we do here at Movers and Shakers Unlimited, just know that you can also sing your love, so to speak, by throwing some stars our way. If you guys don't know what stars are, this basically acts as digital currency that you guys can send our way that allows us to be able to continue to do a lot of the content that we have here on the show. And I also want to give a couple of quick reminders. So just know that let me see if I can pull this up here. That we also have a couple of shows that are coming your way. What is it, tomorrow, that I feel you guys will enjoy. Of course, we have the historian, good friend Miles Doliak will be here tomorrow, along with William Sadler for his film, The Historian, which is celebrating its 10-year anniversary. And that's going to be happening at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if that wasn't enough, guys, we also have another anniversary that we will be talking with, and that's none other than Drop Zone, celebrating its 30th anniversary, y'all. Can y'all believe it? 30th anniversary of Drop Zone. We getting old, y'all. 30th anniversary. But yes, 30th anniversary of Drop Zone with none other than Corn Nemec, good friends of the show, Corn Nemec. And currently, right now, you can enjoy the 30th anniversary of The Crow, in the conversation that I had with Ernie Hudson yesterday. That's currently available right now, that you can see on our YouTube, our Facebooks, all of that stuff. But with that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. You can find me at Brandon Troy ENT on Twitter or X, however you want to call your social media there, and also Instagram at Brandon Troy _ENT. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you soon, y'all. Peace.